Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And today we are back reading the unit. So let's get into it right now. Let's remove the cover, of course. There we go. So the last one was One Crazy Egyptian, and chapter 2 is Inhaling the Breeze. This lasts for freaking 12 pages or something. Okay. 11 pages, something like that. There we go. 2. The Breeze. When I was 6 and living in Alexandria, I sneaked out of the house and wandered 2 blocks down to the beach. So many famous eyes gazed upon the water from that shore. Alexander the Great, Cleopatra, Callimachus or Callimachus. I'm gonna call him Callimachus. Julius Caesar. I saw waves and birds, inhaled salt and sea, and I became enthralled by the bigness of it all. When my family found me, I was soaking wet and breathing in great, rasping heaves. I remember my mother throwing my little body over her shoulder and sprinting to the hospital. It was less than 5 minutes away, but as I fought, as I fought to breathe, it felt like a lifetime. In 1976, the doctors diagnosed me with a lung condition, and I said I would be lucky to live until the age of 12. The doctor said, "You're not going to live." My mother told me as if I was describing the kushari she had for lunch. "But you'll be fine, in some ways." I was too young to care. I just wanted to play. But a few times a week, my mother rushed me to the hospital for a shot to allow air to fill my lungs. I hated shots. I remember feeling confused and weak, but also disgusted by the medicinal smell of the hospital. Bleach and blood and vomit. I learned quickly that I did not like to feel helpless. Just north of the Valley of Kings, I started life as a skinny kid with asthma. My parents were good to each other, kind and close. We lived in a 2 bedroom apartment, the 6 of us. My parents took 1 bedroom, my sisters took 1 bedroom, and my brother and I slept in the living room. It was small, but it was close to the beach and to the university, the hospitals, and the schools. It was a strategic geographic location. That's why my dad picked it. 2 bedrooms were all he could afford in that neighborhood. He wanted to raise us in a middle class neighborhood rather than a poor neighborhood. Because the schools would be better. Because the schools would be better. There were no school buses in Egypt, but Dad picked a place close enough to school that we could walk. When I was little, it was a short walk. In high school, it was about 4 miles each way, 6 days a week. Already, I was being conditioned for long walks. My mother left school after second grade. Her father did not believe in educating girls. She was determined that we would have that opportunity, but also that we would be good humans. If we lied, ass whooping. Lying did not help us make good decisions. She was the one assigned the chores, laundry, dishes, taking out the trash. I was the trash guy. Taking out the trash in Egypt is not like taking out the trash in the United States. I had to walk down the street to the dumpster. I was small. I had to heave that shit up and over into a mess of other trash. I made the mistake of not properly tying the bag only once. Now picture a dumpster with a neighborhood's trash in a 110 degree heat in the middle of the night. Rats, stench, roaches. Mom knew exactly what she was doing. My dad read everything to compensate for a lack of formal education. When he arrived in Alexandria from a small farm town, he could hold his own in conversations. He liked to talk about politics, and he wanted to be around people who would talk about what he saw as the important issues. He liked to sit and observe. a trait I inherited. I think it was just in I think it was just in his DNA to be kind. When my dad got to Alexandria, he had no skills besides farming. He worked in a factory for about a year, but he studied and took a government test for I. Bro, I'm stupid. But he studied and took a test for a government job. He read enough and worked hard enough that he got a job as a safety technician in the Egyptian Navy. Still, because he didn't have a degree, because of that piece of paper, he saw that he would never be able to reach his full potential. You guys will. You guys will graduate from college. He used to tell us, when I walked out my front door, the sun hit me with full force. Daily, daily. Brown boy, dark mop of hair, city kid clothes. If I walked left, I saw Roman statues. If I walked right, I could wander through a Roman theater with its Corinthian columns. Alexandria is not like Cairo with the pyramids and pharaonic and Arabic influences. Alexander the Great built my hometown. So it's a Greek city originally. Near my house sat the Roman theater. Not too far away, you'd find in not too far away, you'd find the Com El Shokafa Com El Shokafa burial grounds from the 2nd century, which merged Roman, Greek, and Egyptian influences. The Egyptian god of the dead guards the entrance, wearing Roman clothing into 3 levels of catacombs. You can see Pompey's Pillar, an ancient Arab wall, the site of Pharaoh's lighthouse, where Fort Whiteby now sits, and the Abu Abbas al-Mursi Mosque was built in 1796. Oh wait, okay. Much of the architecture overlooking the beach is European, from the days when England occupied Egypt. When Malcolm X visited Cairo in the early 1960s, he said it was more like Europe than the Middle East. It's less like that now, but it felt like a Mediterranean city. If you ask the people of their ethnicity, they would say Mediterranean, North African, or Middle Eastern. Rarely you would hear Arabic. Looking around, that made sense. In the 1970s, in places like Egypt and Syria and Lebanon, things felt pretty modern and pretty westernized. The young university women wore miniskirts and bell-bottom pants. They dressed like what we saw on Western TV shows. We shopped at mega stores, which were the equivalent of a shopping mall. In the port, we saw commercial and naval ships, and in the morning, we watched fishing boats go out. If we helped the fishermen pull their nets, they would reward us with free fish at the end of the day. It was a happy childhood. Alexandria had European quarters and Greek quarters, and neighborhoods where the black Africans, many from Sudan, lived. Egyptians, ay, many from Sudan lived, bracket. Egyptians are, of course, also African, bracket. There were immigrants from the Mediterranean countries, a certain class of people who spoke French. Our grocery store was run by a Greek Christian guy. He sold beer, but he wouldn't let us buy from him because he knew our families. He taught us integrity. The tailor was Italian. Our barber was European of some variety. Another neighbor owned the garage. If he saw us joking around not doing anything, he'd say, "Come, help me wipe down this car." If my Boy Scout uniform didn't look right, someone would stop me and say, "Let me help you with your shirt." I had Christian friends growing up. I had Christian friends growing up. I learned to pick my friends for how they treated me. Even within my family, there are differences. I have blonde cousins. My brother looks like a white dude. I'm the darkest one in my family. Ultimately, everybody was just Alexandrian. In Egypt every spring, we celebrated Sham el Nasim, which means inhaling the breeze. It's everything springtime. And it's similar to Easter, but it goes back to the time of the pharaohs. In ancient times, the festival began when the sun aligned with the Great Pyramid of Giza. The ancients colored eggs and wrote wishes on them and hung them on trees, hoping that the gods would see them. Old school shit. When I was a kid, every year, a parade with Mickey Mouse and the Easter Bunny would wend its way through the city. New school shit. And fun. The ancient sea breeze continued to call me. Inhale. 2 years after my asthma attack, I started running the same beach that almost killed me too. To put muscle in my legs. I always appeared much younger than I was, and bullies looking for the littlest kid may have inspired my need for strength. Every year, every single year, at the beginning of the year, someone would try to bully me, and I would fight back. Damn. My mother pushed me towards sports. She worried about my lungs, my stature, those bullies. To compensate, I need to run fast, to be strong. That same year when I was 8, I started to play basketball. I used to measure how high I could jump and compete with my brother. We tried to touch the ceiling. I jumped until I could reach the basketball net. But I also worked on my mind. I started to play chess that year too. Maybe I could outsmart the bullies. I became the best player in this district. Academically, I was in the top of my class. My parents encouraged my efforts. My mother was acting as if what the doctor said was complete nonsense and treating me exactly like the other children. And my father by acting as a shadow throughout my youth. During Ramadan, we fasted through the whole month during the day. Starting that same year when I was 8, and it would be so hot. No water until evening. My mom used to soak me down with a hose. My mother used to soak me down with a hose. You're, you're just little, she said. It's okay for you to have a little water. But I was stubborn. Preparation. Ramadan is always in the ninth month of the Islamic calendar, and fasting is one of the 5 pillars in Islam, which are the things you are meant to do as a good Muslim. The others are declaring one's faith in God, daily prayer, giving alms, and a pilgrimage to Mecca. It's familiar to give something up for Lent, fasting a path towards spiritual growth through physical means. During Ramadan, Muslims don't eat, drink, even water, or have sexual relationships from sunrise until sunset every single day. Some people pray more too, and then we celebrate. Because Muslims believe that God revealed the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad during the last 10 days of Ramadan. The whole neighborhood got involved. No matter where they were, Muslim or not, it's like Christmas in the United States, the home of the Hanukkah bush. Even atheists love Santa. In a hot country, we had small ovens in our homes. But everyone baked huge numbers of pastries and cookies for Ramadan. My brother and I would go to the local bakery and rent a baking sheet. And then my mother would fill it with different kinds of sweets. She'd write our name on it, and then my brothers and I would go stand in that line with all the other families with their trays, and chit chat and joke. It was festive. The Christian families would do the same thing. It was fun. There just wasn't that division. At least, that's how I remember it. At night, after we had broken our fast, my friends and I would walk the streets of Alexandria until the early hours of the morning, gazing at so many tiny twinkling lights throughout the strung throughout ah fuck strung across millennia old roads from centuries old buildings, mosques, and Roman pillars and shops. That felt as if we traveled through a cocoon of bright stars and crescents. People hung tin lanterns with intricate patterns and colorful paper lanterns from their backyards. Ornaments, similar to Christmas ornaments hung from every available space. In Egypt, we love brightly colored wall hangings with bits of river mirror woven in, and glass shapes reflected the light. It was magic, like a fairyland. Public iftar tables, where people broke the fast each evening for a month, lined the streets, and it seemed as if they went on for miles. We ate konafa, a thread thin shredded pastry layered with a cream or nuts and raisins filling them, then soaked in syrup. It felt like a carnival. We played soccer on the streets that had been blocked for the festivities, and we felt safe and loved by all the neighbors we saw gathered all the neighbors we saw gathered to celebrate the month of great blessings. My Egypt was not the Sphinx surrounded by pyramids and desert. Every summer we went to my grandparents' farms. As we drove south to the center of the Nile Delta from Alexandria, we saw green in every direction, a land of fertility. About an hour south of Alexandria, there's a town called Damanhur. From there, we took a dirt road for about another half an hour to my father's parents' house. As we came into town, just before a canal where I almost drowned, one of my parental grandfather's dogs would meet us. He'd run alongside the car, wriggling his tail and happy. And that would mark the beginning of summer. My maternal uncle, my other grandfather's chosen heir to his land, would sometimes meet us with his tractor. He was kind and fun and huge. He had 6 fingers on one hand. That's crazy. And the family said God knew he was going to be a hard worker, so he gave him some extra help. On the tractor, my mom my mom would take the only other seat. But my uncle's shoulders were so wide that my brother and sisters would simply and I would simply cling to him. My sister sat in his lap, and I'd saddle my tiny legs around his neck and gripped his forehead. Air smelled like grass. The people who loved us. Oh, my bad. My bad, guys. We're going back. Wait, I'm gonna find the page. Air that smelled like grass. People who loved us. The scent of the Nile, which had matured millions before us. No brick walls covering our windows to protect us from war, as they did in Alexandria. Summer. We thought we went for fun, a vacation, but we really went so my dad could save money at the farm. I could save money. At the farm, he didn't have to feed us. Dad would hire a car, and my brother, sisters, mom and I would load up and head out with all our suitcases. My dad would then head back to Alexandria to work, where we spent the summer in the country. In the country. Oh, okay. Okay, man, bro, we loved it. Because we could play and run around with bare feet. My father's father, built a big house with several apartments for his sons and their families. He had farms spread out throughout the area. He rotated his crops: cotton, pears, corn, tomatoes, and cucumbers. At night, we would go out into the fields and build a bonfire and roast the corn. We'd eat it with cucumbers and tomatoes my grandfather had grown. Most homes in the area didn't have phones or electricity. If they had electricity, it didn't always work. No television. I'd wake with the sun as early as 5 a.m. and played with my cousins. I had more than 20 of them. They were they were creative. We didn't have fishing poles, so we punched holes in big trays and scooped the trays through the water to catch fish. My grandmother loved us. but she didn't love what we did to her pots and pans. Preparation. I learned a lot during that time. It made me tough. I could walk with no shoes. I, just like the Nebraska farm kids who joined me in selection, could play in the sun all day without drinking water or eating. I was prepared for my unit selection without their knowing. Ooh, without knowing. That's crazy. So it really just from the childhood. There was no such thing as air conditioning or too hot or I'm not going to do it. We worked hard. By the time I got into the military, that stuff was easy. I had other preparation. Every summer, I would have an accident. I would have an accident. One time, as a ragtag group of us rode the tractor, I hung off the back. Somebody pushed me, playing around and trying to take my spot, and I fell. And the tractor ran over my foot. Everybody ran to tell my mother. Hey! Your son just died! I didn't die, but I couldn't walk for the rest of the summer. They put my foot in a cast, and I wasn't allowed to put any weight on it for 2 months. Another time, I fell in a canal used for collecting the village sewage. As I played with a cousin, I simply slipped off the edge, one of my female cousins, and cleaned me up after. I went back to the house. I smelled like shit, so I wouldn't be punished. Years later, the swimming portion the swimming portion of selection proved to be the hardest part for me mentally. As I treaded water and dove for the weights, wearing of all my clothing, boots, too, and gear, all I could think about was that dark, diseased water filling my lungs, as well as the seaside adventure that left me weak as a child. But that near drowning in the canal likely hardened me, even if it left me with a fear of water. I'm not fond of shit either. Resilient. I did not fear pain or risk. Perhaps I was already addicted to adrenaline, or perhaps I was just clumsy. In the countryside, my cousins looked out for me when they weren't teasing me themselves. In the army, if I talked about those days, a pal would tell a similar story about a farm in the States, whether we were kids in the Valley of Egypt or the plains of the Midwest. We played the same games and learned the same lessons. Well, I may have been the only one who fell off a camel. But those similarities help free us from our preconceived ideas about people. At the farm, if we weren't playing, our uncles grilled us. They expected us to learn to know moderate Islam and math. We faced math drills from relatives at any moment. If you left, if you left Alexandria at 10 a.m. going 90 miles per hour to Cairo, what time would you meet your brother coming from Alexandria at 10:30 a.m. going 80 miles per hour? My uncle would ask. Bro, wait, let me see. If you left Alexandria at 10 a.m. going 90 miles per hour to Cairo, what time would you meet your brother coming from Alexandria at 10:30 a.m. going 80 miles per hour? What does that even mean? Just when we thought we'd recover from that, we'd get what's 743 times 64. And we'd grab a pencil. No, no, no. Do it in your head. That's crazy. No, do it in your head. That's crazy. None of these guys had more than a high school education, but they were brilliant. My father would hit us with riddles. What is a creature that walks on four legs in the morning, two legs at noon, and three in the morning, and three in the evening? The riddle of the Sphinx, the riddle of the man. That's how they taught us. My paternal grandfather was the mayor of his village. To get into the university, my grandfather would have memorized the entire Quran by heart before he was 15. Then he taught it to my father and to my uncles. He taught them moderate Islam. What these other people are talking about is not Islam, he told them. Aiden Arrow would have not have impressed my grandfather. My mother's father was a self-made man. He was wealthier than my other grandfather. He was a man of few words. But we saw him as a kinder than my other grandfather, who lived about half an hour away. My mom's father would wake up at 4 or 5 before morning prayer and ride his horse around his property. He had a lot of orchards, and people used to take the fruit from his trees. A couple of pieces of fruit is okay, but the people would take a lot. So, some mornings, he would fire a couple of rounds from his old Russian made rifle into the air, and he would go to Fajar, Fajr. I don't know what Fajr. Let's just call it that. The first prayer of the day at the mosque. Hey, hey, hey. People would say when he arrived, "We heard gunfire from your property this morning." "Yes," he would say. There were foxes. Red foxes, gray foxes were not yet native to Egypt. Because people were afraid of the foxes, they avoided his property, of course. There were no foxes, but he was a sneaky old wise man. He spent time learning about his adversaries, building relationships, and studying situations until he found the best solution. I learned from him too. So that chapter was just about him learning. Basically, the stuff that he learned when he was just like a wee little child. Okay. Hey man, this guy is pretty cool, man. Everything that I noticed, stuff like people can be just really smart no matter where they come from. You don't have to be this like beautiful genius to not be considered smart in other people's eyes. So still, I learned a lot from that, and I think next time I'm still gonna try and read. I'm gonna try and read every single day, even though I haven't been reading that much recently. I skipped yesterday because I was lazy off. I really need to start reading more because the unit is actually genuinely interesting. You guys read it yourselves if you'll want to, but y'all probably not even understanding me right now. Y'all don't even probably understood what I just said because yeah. Thank you though. Well, goodbye, and I'm gonna see you in my next reading video or my next actual video, which is I don't know when that's coming out. Bye bye.